No, well, Danny was inferring that I was fat, which I am, but
I wasn't. I called you Neptune.
We said you look like a mermaid man, you know?
Wow.
I just said you were never ripped like Neptune.
No.
No, it's because of the beer I'm drinking, and Charlie's on the cover.
Those old men talk shit.
Yes. This
It's officially
welcome
started.
to episode 4 of the Earwax. What was it? Ear hair?
Charlie's ear hair.
The Ear Hair Collective. Grundy, what's a song off your? What's a band off your list? Or an album, whatever we're doing. Album. What's an album off your list?
The number 5 on my list is Doggy
Number
Style 2.
5. What?
Doggy Style 2 by Doggy Style.
Okay. Not familiar.
You might remember
I
that
know
one.
the band, but I can't.
The Doggy Style 2 cover was like a rip off Led Zeppelin 2. So it was like, I think it was actually the cover of Led Zeppelin 2, and they just put their faces on like a couple of the spots in the crowd that's standing in the front of it with the blimp crashing in the background.
I think we're going to see a running theme with this list because that pick doesn't surprise me, but me knowing you the best out of all of us on here, I'm sure mine probably won't surprise you either. And then the same would probably go for Charlie and Danny.
Wow.
I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised only, and it's just makes mine seem pedestrian now.
I'm not familiar. I'm not familiar with Doggy Style. What?
I know the name, and I remember
What
the
is it
ads.
about
Really,
them that makes them
Really,
on
is
our
Boston?
list?
Are they
No,
a
they
Boston
were
band?
a California band. It was Brian Baker, the guitar player from Minor
That's
Threat's
right.
band
Yep.
after Minor Threat and before Dag Nasty.
Am
Or
I thinking of DI? Am I thinking of?
yeah,
It was after, no, because then
It
he
was
was
after-
in Junkyard. He was in Junkyard after Dag Nasty.
yeah. It
And
was
he was
somewhere in
in-
there. He wasn't the original guitar player. I remember there was multiple issues in Maximum Rock and Roll about the big fight between the two Doggy Styles that were trying to like keep the band going or some incredible bullshit like that. But Doggy Style 2 has actually, it's not even really that good of an album, but it's got a couple of songs that are just fucking fantastic. And
I'd have to check it out.
So there's
it's
2 bands called Doggy Style?
there's a weird phase.
Is it like a
there.
Chromags thing where we're the real Chromags? You're the whatever. Is it John Joseph? Jeff Jones? What's his name?
Jim Jones?
Jim Jerf? Jim Jerkoff? Well, I don't know what the deal is. Never listened. Anyway, go on, Grundy. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting you.
It's all right. There's a song about getting books from the library and learning everything there is to learn. And I never noticed that song when I originally had this album like 30 years ago. And when I got it again a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, check out. They actually have a song about books from the library. Like this is my kind of album. But there's the first like 4 songs are pretty absolutely stellar, and like Somebody's Revenge, I can't remember the name of the song, is like it's like punk rock, multiple guitars, it's all over the place. There's like a one of the songs is like about there's more punks and punk rock stars. It's about the whole like everybody thinking for a moment in 1983 that they're going to get rich doing this. And it's like, you must have mistaken this for 1993 for the 3 people who are going to get rich doing this. But it's an interesting.
So wait, they were thinking they were able to predict 1993 in 1983?
Maybe. I don't know who was getting like rich and famous in 1983 playing punk rock.
I don't think anybody was.
No. All right, who's next? Charlie?
All right, my number 5 is Wisconsin by the Crucifix. And
It's on my list as well.
oh,
Spoiler
sorry,
alert.
Dan. I think you and I might have a few overlaps. I mean, every song on it I love, but you know, when the top comes off is just one of those songs that you know, the way that human existence is pared down to it's told from the point of view of some earthworms on a fishing trip.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Are you two guys familiar with this album? Or?
Nope.
Bill, no?
No.
So yeah, so basically it's about like, well, if you get to live to see too much, you're lifted from the dirt and reamed right through the length of you. And then also I like that song, The Savior. And there's something about that line about Momar taught me how it was to lose a child and how he'll turn the other cheek the day he dies. It always kind of like gets me, you know, it appeals to like, you know, the emotional Irishman in me, you know. And there's very few albums that like can choke you up with just like one line, but there's just something about that one line that sticks with me. And
I think there's a way he delivers it as well, where it's both grief and rage simultaneously, and it's just pretty incredible way to end that album.
Well, yeah, and I remember at the time that, you know, whatever that was, 87 or 86, you know, the jubilation that we had bombed Gaddafi and one of his kids was killed, like one of his children, not like, you know, Hussein's kids, like Uday and Qusay or whatever their names were. But, you know, this was like a toddler. And we were overjoyed. Anyway.
Was this the song, or was the song that we covered in Cell 63 off of this album?
No, that's the first album.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is now available as a single.
That's the
unit.
extent of my knowledge of.
Was that
of
the
this band.
song you covered on the crank disc? Or
Yeah,
different-
yeah. Democracy
It's
Spawns
interesting.
Bad
Yeah.
Taste.
It's interesting because the two albums are like, I don't know if they're, Dan, are they two different lineups? I knew a guy in San Francisco who claimed to have played the drums for them.
You know, I don't know, but I'll tell you, those two albums side by side are night and day. Like one is like juvenile, like high school, like just
thrash
humor, and like just, it's, you know, just like saying things purely for effect almost. And then the other album is just, it's deeper, like musically.
Yeah, there's a lot of melodic elements to it. I mean, it's got a lot of acoustic guitar on it, and it's just a really good album.
Yeah.
I mean, his voice is still his voice, but so that's mine.
It's a little better. I think it's a little bit better.
Yeah, and I also think it's better production values and things like that.
All right, Bill, what you got?
Me? All right. Well, I kind of did mine. I unfortunately rushed mine, but so I may not have as much commentary prepared, but here's my number 5. Just, it's my favorite Descendants album, one of my favorite bands. This one I feel like is a bit more polished and put together, and the songs are a little more fleshed out than their previous stuff, which I love the previous stuff too. But I really think this album just is like the pinnacle from this band.
Mm.
I don't know. I know you guys, I'm looking at more at Charlie, like I know you're a fan of the band, but I don't know that you're a fan of this era of the band.
Well,
Not
the
even that
thing
this
is,
is really an era,
my
'cause it's-
only thing I was going to say was just like it goes back to our previous episode in that, like, it's just exposure. Like, if one of your friends had Milo Goes to College, that was the one you listened to.
No, because I heard all the other stuff before this one.
Well, I'm just saying for me, like what
Yeah.
my experience was,
Gotcha.
being
Gotcha.
a pauper. So yeah, it just didn't cross my path. That's all. It's not,
Gotcha.
it's got nothing to do with anything other than it didn't cross my path.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
It's interesting because I had heard a lot of tracks off Enjoy, and I was in the car listening to VKR, and somebody played Coolidge, and I was absolutely floored. And I didn't know who it was, and I was just like, "That song was so awesome!" And they never forget. And I'm like driving, and it's like I can't find a payphone to pull over and call and say, "What's that fucking song?"
Yeah.
And
The
then,
song from this that hooked me and pulled me in was Clean Sheets, definitely.
Uh-huh.
And it's it's super poppy, super accessible for this kind of band for back then. But yeah, that was a song. I mean, it had a hook, and I really dug it. And then the rest of what I think Jealous of the World Again is on this one as well, which is another really one of my favorite songs. Yep.
here
Came
in my
Age.
van,
Yeah.
I can
I'll
sleep.
listen to it tomorrow. But
Yep.
is this why the spin-off band became All? Like, did it go right from?
Yeah, Milo had left the band and they got another singer, and the rest of the Descendants kind of transplanted. I don't know if it was the rest of the Descendants, but I think it was
Yeah.
Yeah,
bass, drums, guitar. Did all the
And
band
then
all.
that guy goes on to be in Firehose.
Dave
Am I
Smalley.
right?
Yeah, I don't
Smalley?
think he
Oh
was
no,
in
he's from
Firehose.
He's from DYS.
Yeah, Firehose was Minutemen.
Yeah. No, I just
Underbroom,
thought there was some
Mike Watt.
crossover there. I can't. I probably knew once upon a time, but now I.
Mhm. So anyway, that's my number 5.
All right.
It's a
And
good
Danny,
one.
thank you.
I'll take X-Ray Specs Germ-Free Adolescence.
Mm,
It's a
That's
good
on
one.
my list in
That's a
no
good one.
particular order.
I
I'll
don't
have
think
to
we've
add
ever
that to mine.
jammed out to that one.
It has just, it's grown on me over years. Like, I don't know, there's just something about that album that is just magical. Like, it's just the only one of its kind. There's nothing really in terms of a follow-up. It just sits alone on its own. And it's like, I don't know, it's the only punk album I can listen to with saxophones on it. And I don't get too offended, I guess is the way I describe it. But I think Polystyrene's a genius. And I love reading lyrics while I'm listening to stuff. Like, I just would do that all the time, and just really like her lyrics. And just, I don't know, it's kind of a flawless album for what it is. So I don't know what else to say about it, but I'll just throw it on every once in a while. And it's one of those albums I'll listen to from front to back, no interruptions.
Are you still listening to albums like you have a record player?
Yeah, it depends. Like, I'll have stuff on, like, it depends on what I'm doing. If I'm like, it's weird. Like, if I'm out in the barn or outside working on something, I'll try to put on full albums if I have to concentrate. But if I just sort of am just doing something, I'll just throw on like random songs and just let it spin through my head.
Well, I like the songs I've heard off that album. I don't think I've ever sat and listened to the whole thing. Like, it's definitely on like mixes people have made for me and stuff.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's just a great album.
Cool.
Brings
You
us
guys
back.
hear that? There's
What?
like coyotes outside my window, and they're having a party.
No.
No.
Are those annoying dogs?
No,
They've
this
come to kill
this
them.
is over the. Oh no, dogs are that way. Coyotes are that way.
I guess Grundy, it's your turn.
All right,
Round
number
2.
4.
Wait, no, you never did 5. Wait.
Hey, dude.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah,
Doggy style.
right. Duh,
I-
God,
I
man.
started this train wreck.
Just because you haven't
Alzheimer's.
heard of the band.
Doggy Style. Doggy Style 2.
Doggy Style too.
Alzheimer's.
Oh, speaking of, this next album has an amazing song about that,
Oh,
called
I
I
know what it
Forget. It's SNFU.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
if you swear, you'll catch no fish. And it's just like, I think it's kind of obvious. It's like for me, like most of my stuff is like West Coast kind of punk rock before like New York hardcore like clipped into my mind a little bit. But like Where Are My Legs and I Forget and Mine Like a Door, and it's just the whole freaking album is just so freaking good. I still have vinyl of this one.
But you're not the one who suggested Devil's Voice, right?
No, I
For-
thought
yeah.
Danny
Danny.
suggested
Dan
that
did,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a great song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bunch of great songs on that album.
Yep.
I hadn't listened to it in years, and then over the summer, just sitting in my yard hanging out, I just threw the album on a whim, and I was like, "Holy crap! I forgot how
They're
good
so
these guys
good.
I think
They're so
I had
good.
come over that evening.
Yeah.
We were like practicing, and you're like, "Yeah, this I came across this song today. I haven't heard it in a long time." And I was like, "That's cool. Let's add it."
There was a live bootleg going around that summer, the summer after that came out. And I think I went to see them at the Anthrax, probably with Jim and Ramon. And I think I bought my t-shirt from, Mr. Chai Pig himself.
You had that shirt until it basically dissolved around.
Yeah. Yep, that's true. Yeah, I remember that one party. Yeah, but I couldn't find it. And I was freaking out. That's another story.
I was trying
But
to
I can
think
never
of,
find that bootleg. That's the thing.
I was trying to think of who got me into them originally. And for a while I thought, oh, it must be Brian Hay. It must have been Brian Hay. But I think it was my friend Dave Milroy who lives in Texas now. We'll have to invite him on the show because he's like a total square now. But he had the best taste in punk rock back in the mid-'80s.
It seemed like it just came out of nowhere.
In my world, it did. It was just
Yeah,
like, hey,
yeah.
here's this
Me
crazy
too.
ass band. It was just like,
Yep.
whoa.
Yep. And that 2-guitar assault, just really so good. And the bass player,
I
so
don't
good.
know why, but I never realized they were a California band.
They're not. They're
Canadian.
They're
Oh,
Canadian.
they're Canadian. Okay. Well, you mentioned West Coast earlier, and I think
Well, they
that's
were
why.
To me,
from-
they're like totally associated with like West Coast skate punk kind of scene. And
Well, they hooked up with Epitaph eventually and became part of that,
yeah.
watered down punk stuff. That's sort of like capitalized on Nirvana and, Warped Tour garbage.
Well, there goes the rest
your
of my
next?
list.
Mr. Softy. Anyway, but I think
As I talk about the Descendants with Poppy
from
Hooks.
like the Midwest of Canada, like Alberta or Edmonton or something, and they all moved to Vancouver.
All right, Charlie.
That's the West Coast too.
Yeah, that is West Coast. All right, talk about, well, it's not watered down, but I mean, it's just like pedestrian, but I did have I couldn't decide, but I went with the Clash's first album, and it was a toss-up between this and London Calling.
That's okay. I caught London Calling.
Yeah, good. Well, good.
That was on
And
my
there's-
short list. London Calling was on my short list.
It's only because I don't know what it is, but it's just those are like some of the first albums, like even before I discovered hardcore, even before anything, like I knew about the Clash in high school and earlier, and it just I don't know. I mean, if I'm looking at my notes, it just says complete control. Enough said. You know, that's another one where it like really gets me, like, you're my guitar hero, you know. Those are just lines that stay with me. I would say that
Such a weird
song,
world back then that they're like on a major label, you know, like
right?
off the bat, like such a strange world.
Yeah, and then catapulted, like that was like my first, like seeing them with the Who was like, and no one
Wow.
was paying attention to them, and
What tour would that have been for the
that was
Who?
the Who's first last tour,
Face.
Shea
Okay.
Stadium. Yeah,
That's where the video for Train in Vain was filmed.
it was.
Oh, really?
I think
Huh.
so, yeah. All those live shots, it looked like they're from Shea Stadium. I just assumed. Because I think it shows the outside of Shea Stadium at the beginning of the video, now that I think about it.
I don't know that I've ever seen the video.
It's nothing to write home about.
I wasn't an MTV haver.
But that's more London Calling discussion. You're talking about
Yeah, yeah. Well, that was, well, no, that they would have been on Combat Rock tour for that.
right, yeah, at that
Yeah,
point.
that's what that was. And yeah, just and Janie Jones. There's something about that beat in Janie Jones that just also really like gets me. And I don't know what it is. It's just like something I always come back to. That London Calling, just always, 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 always.
I just have great memories of like drunk groups singing
Yeah.
that first album.
Yeah. In the Ock parking lot. Like when we were getting to know each other, like, oh, you like this? Yeah, I like
Right.
this too. Let's smoke this really bad weed.
All right, Bill.
All right. So this might not surprise Grundy, but Charlie and Danny, I don't think you would see this one coming. Big Black, Atomizer.
Oh yeah.
I was literally humming Bad Houses earlier tonight.
Just
That's
Well,
not
it
the
doesn't
one with
surprise me
Bad
at all,
Penny.
Bill.
Jordan, Minnesota. Bad Penny's on their last one, Songs
Right.
About Fucking.
Yeah.
I like all of what they released. I almost cheated and did, like, they had a compilation, the Rich Man's 8-track tape, which had Atomizer and Hammer Party, I think, on it as well. But as far as individual albums, I mean, just some of the songs I hear are just terrifying, like Georgia, Minnesota, and Kerosene, and Passing Complexion and stuff like that. Yeah, love it. Love the lo-fi drum machine. The it was my first, other than Lemmy, that having like an angry bass sound. This band was like probably what I most tried to pattern when I was playing bass, pattern that sound after. Just that you using the metal pick and just that all attack and just growl on the bass.
Yeah.
So yeah, the guitar sound in this band and in another band that'll be later on my list is not the best guitar sound. It's kind of shrieky, but in both cases, the bass tone just makes up for it for me, and the songs are great.
Well, Atomizers, when they started having two guitar players, right? There was like Twang and
Yeah,
Zoom or something like that. It says
Yeah.
it on the album cover. It's like one's like and one's like
Yeah. And it always cracked me up
Is
whenever.
Albini sings and plays guitar, right?
yeah.
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 Yeah. And I always thought he and Brian Hay were like, or I'm sorry, Brian Anderson were dead ringers for each other. If you look at pictures from Steve Albini from back in this era, he looks exactly like
he does.
Brian Anderson did.
And now he looks nothing like Brian Anderson.
So there you go. That's my number 4. Big
All
Black,
right.
Atomizer.
All right, I'm gonna go with, well, I'll just do my Crucifix, Wisconsin on this one as well. I just felt like I could just briefly just add to what Charlie said before, like just the songwriting on it is light years away from that first album. And I don't know if it's all new musicians, but it seems like it is. It seems like a completely different band, and one that's really figured out something that I don't know what it is, but it's it's like this, it's still angry, but it's not at the same time. Like it's deeper. It's a much deeper album than just a bunch of snotty kids pissing off the grown-ups. And it kind of really cuts to like the meat and potatoes of things, and it sort of strips away, in a lot of ways, it sort of strips away like all the pretense of just being an angry punk, and it makes it something really personal. So I just think it's a great album.
Yeah.
I'll have to give this a listen. Seriously.
Wisconsin, yeah.
All right,
What year
Grundy.
did this come out? What year was that, if you don't
It's
mind?
got to be like 86 or 87. 87, 88,
Yeah.
maybe.
Probably a quick Google search by any of us could find that answer.
I have
I
it
would
right
do
over
that.
there, but I'm not getting up.
Well, Bill, you can Google too. It's probably like
Yeah.
late 80s. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's late 80s. I think I
like
was on my
80.
third OC sojourn.
All right.
Year 5 of an associate's degree.
Could this be our only overlap of the night?
No, I don't think so.
I
No?
I have a feeling that Bill and I are going to overlap severely when we get down into like our, at least my number 2.
Okay.
I've been
I'm gonna
holding
bet.
a card because I'm hoping Bill and I overlap on this, but it's a toss-up.
I think,
So,
yeah,
but
we'll see.
Grundy,
We'll see.
Yeah, I was hoping we would overlap on my number 1, but we'll see.
I think before we hit number 1, we should all just like quickly rattle off a handful that didn't make it to the top 5.
Sure,
Yeah.
All right.
sure.
Honorable mentions.
Yes, our honorable mentions. My number, where are we? Number 3 is, I'm like West Coast. Here's a band from Connecticut that had a huge influence on me. 76% Uncertain.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Hunka Hunka Burnin' Log. I love that album. I picked it up. I had a tape of it. It was backed with Doggy Style 2 that I swiped from a friend of mine. And somebody swiped it for me. Shocker. And I found it in a record store in Syracuse. And like, it was probably 1980. 1990 when I got that. So it wasn't even that old. But it's got some great songs on there, and it has the best cover of Live and Let Die that was ever recorded. And probably only there's
better
only
than
2
Guns
covers.
N' Roses.
Oh, when
think that
Guns
was
N'
a
Roses,
joke.
when I'm like, no, you're supposed to do this here, and they're just like, and it's like, ah.
I've heard it. I've heard that album. I just and I remember I must have been at a show where they were on the bill at some point.
Yeah. I'm looking at the song list, and it's just like one of them is just like it's one of my absolute favorite songs, and I cannot remember which one it is because you can't understand a damn thing that they're saying on there. At least I never thought I could. I think it's Going Down Slow, which is just, or maybe it's Exceptions. Is just like the whole song is just a bunch of cliches. The whole song is strung together a bunch of cliches. Like the chorus is 5-finger discount, 6-gun slang, 7 days to Monday, 8 days, daydreams a week, counting down the rules. It's just like, then all of a sudden, like when I finally like heard all the lyrics, I was just like, this song is fucking stupid, but I love this song.
Right, but they're making a point.
Yeah. Jelly Mold of Doom. It's a classic.
Were they Anthrax staples? I feel like I always saw.
I feel like they were Anthrax and like maybe
Yeah.
Brickenwood and New Haven back
Yeah.
in. They had a reunion show that I missed about.
They
10
played a
years ago.
bunch with AOD on those
Yeah.
a bunch of their reunion shows. Every one of them, I think, actually.
Oh shit! I can't believe I didn't put AOD on my list.
I was just like, oh
Yeah.
man, I missed that. Who was it that we knew that went? I think might have been Danny that they saw DOA and AOD on the same show, and like AOD played, and then DOA came out and just kind of took their banner and flipped it around and rehung it.
Wasn't me.
On the way home from work today, I was just listening to Riding with Elvis and Bigfoot's UFO.
That's hard to find. Where'd you find it?
I was listening to it on YouTube.
Oh, that's what the only time I ever found it on YouTube was it was some guy playing the record.
What?
Yes. Yes.
I have to say,
You've never seen those videos where they like just play the record?
I don't understand what that
really
means.
appreciate those a lot because you
It's just a video of the guy playing the record. You can hear it
a lot
fine.
of times
Oh,
you'll
okay.
see them like put the needle down and
Yeah. Where'd Bill go?
He quit.
I'm here. I went to go look for something.
Turns out he doesn't like AOD that much.
No, actually, I'm going.
sure
I
he's got
was
an
going to
AOD tattoo
find.
somewhere.
No, I don't have a tattoo, but I have the Humongous Fungus Among Us album, and I thought I had it handy, but I guess I don't. Oh well.
That Humongous Fungus album, man, and Wacky Hijinks, that
Yeah.
it just brings back memory of like driving to Jersey with Jim while he's trying to buy bass gear for a band we were trying to form. Oh man, it was a
Big
crappy
big
Toyota Tercel. I think Charlie, we're on you, man. What's your net? What's
Or
your
what,
rap?
number 3?
I just
Yeah.
want to say, guys, good thing I put my mic on mute. I just stepped on a freaking shit ton of Legos. God damn.
Oh
Ugh.
man.
Anyway,
I went
Charlie.
on a tirade once at a kid's birthday party. Just was like, that better not be another bag full of small plastic things. Next person who gives my kid a small bag of plastic things with sharp edges is getting a punch in the face. Again, I had to go with the lesser popular, but Wild in the Streets instead of Group Sex.
It's a great album.
It's a great album, but Ramon duped it for me off his, I think he had like a Unicorn pressing. I think it was the Unicorn label. I
Okay.
feel like it was the original recording. And since then, it's been remastered a number of times and it's terrible every time. There's like a tinniness, or there's, I feel like the version they have on Spotify right now is a little bit back towards how I originally remember it. But why it got included was the songs Forced Labor and Political Stew, I think, are underrated. Those are their because they're not really like a political band, I feel like
it's more social commentary than
yeah, right, but not like Jello with Nicaragua,
yeah,
that kind of crap. But those two songs are political in nature, and I think Keith did a really good job, and the rest of the album rocks. And the covers of the disco songs at the end, that's why it got included.
That is a great album.
Cool.
Yep.
That's the one that like it just makes me feel 19 to listen to it. Like it just makes me like just fucking pumped to like go do stupid shit. Like that's the way that album makes me.
Right.
Going back to last week's, go out somewhere and make some bad decisions.
Right. Well, like
piss off the wrong people.
There's something about like got a handful of lewds that just brings me back.
Funny.
All right, Bill.
All right, let me do my silly photo thing here. So you guys would have expected this band, maybe not this particular album though. No Means
It's about
No.
time.
Yeah.
0 + 2 = 1.
Yep.
I love that album.
It was the first one I got. I got this when it had first come out. It was like 90 or 91, and it was my first. I had heard of them and probably heard some stuff by them, but yeah, this album just blew me away. Every day I start to ooze now. Valley of the Blind, just tons and tons of great songs on this, and the bass sound. Going back to what I was saying about Big Black, this band, I think, has the best bass tone. I almost picked Wrong because it has a lot of my favorite songs on it, but as far as like an album top to bottom, I find myself definitely with like listening to this one all the way through more than I do Wrong. So I don't know. You guys probably expected one.
Well, what's the
one from this?
yeah?
one,
No,
though.
I expected No
For
Means
sure.
No, but that's like the one album I don't really know. Top
Of course it is. Well, this is when they got on Epitaph and
Uh-huh.
got on the
Oh,
Warped
right.
Tour. So
Okay. Well, that's like a very hazy period of my life. So
okay. And
yeah,
I think this was Tim
definitely
Kerr's
Dylan and Neil Young.
last album with the band. This one also has probably the last of the really grady, shrilly guitar sound too. But yeah, I mean, on the strength of the songs alone, I think this album is, for me, their best one all the way through as far as songwriting goes.
Yeah, I love that. A couple of years ago, I think you were still in Cell 63, and you had all your music digitized. So you were, I think you had handed me like a pile of CDs one day, and this was in it.
Mhm.
Play the shit out of that CD.
Yeah.
I love that album.
Yeah, it's a good one.
None of that album is on the live album.
Live and Cuddly. No, I think that was
No,
recorded
that's
before.
after Wrong, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been the older stuff. Yep. There was something I was going to say and I forgot now. Damn it.
Sorry.
Oh well, doesn't matter. It's probably
This
a
is
lie
an
anyway.
album that's like the louder you play it, the better it sounds. Like this album is like meant to be like cranked up too. Like it's such a great sounding album.
Yeah, I remember what I was going to say. If you go to their website, which I think is still up, they have an extended version of this. 0 + 2 = 1.5, and it's got some outtakes and different versions of songs and different songs that just didn't make it onto the album. So that's out there, and it's free, so that's always nice.
Free is
To
good.
download or stream?
Download. Yep. It's probably on Spotify too. I don't know. So anyway, there you go. That's my number 3.
All right.
Danny.
My number 3 would be the Maximum Rock and Roll comp.
Oh yeah.
Not so quiet
We're
on the
allowing
Western Front.
comps. I
Oh,
didn't know that.
I
didn't know, we didn't
seriously
really
thought
come up
about
with
that.
I had a comp in my list too, but it didn't make the cut.
But you know that's fine though, because it's still an album, right?
Yeah.
So
I think so. Yeah.
wait, Not So Quiet or the European one?
That's not
No,
Maximum
Not So
Rock
Quiet.
and Roll,
The West
but
Coast
that's the one I had.
Oh, well, yeah. Alternative Tentacles.
No, Let Them Eat Jelly Beans is Alternative Tentacles.
What are you
Isn't it?
talking about, Charlie?
Wait,
Isn't
which
Let
album
Them-
are you talking about?
Yeah, I thought Not So Quiet was the Maximum Rock and Roll comp. Not So
Yeah.
Quiet on the West
Yeah,
Coast.
it was the
Right,
original.
but is it on
Maximum
AT?
Rock
It
and Roll
is.
comp.
I
No,
think
it's
Grundy's
on-
talking
it's
about
Maximum
the
Rock and
Pete
Roll comp.
Ford
It's
comp.
all
Anyway, go ahead, Dan. I'm sorry.
This was a controversial selection.
You
apparently.
derailed yourself.
I think that was all
I
you.
just loved it.
No,
I think that was all you.
no way.
I had that on my list until this evening. That was definitely
really?
going to be like my number 3. And then
There is something fucking magic going on at that moment in that little piece of the world. Like, and it captured it. Like, it's all like production wise, it's like all like, it seems like it's half of it's recorded on boom boxes at practice spaces and stuff.
Probably
but
was.
it's like just so raw and like out of control, and it's just crazy ass stuff on it. The first copy I got of that album was like maybe it must have been when it first came out. I was like 17 years old, and I had like convinced my best friend's sister to buy it for him for his birthday, so that I could slip a cassette player
Exactly.
into it when he do it, and recorded it. He had no interest in that music whatsoever. I just was selfish and decided to convince her that he would love it, and it worked out really well for me. I've never stopped listening to that album.
I think I had it on tape too. It's
I
Bad
think I
Brains.
still have the cassette here.
Yeah,
Somewhere. I
yeah.
just don't have a cassette player.
Yeah.
All right, round
Full
four.
things on YouTube. I was, yeah,
Mhm.
that one.
That's where I listen
and
to it these days.
there's the other one, which is like, there was the That's So Quiet on the Western Front, and then there was the follow-up, which was like all European bands.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
on that's the Peace War one. It's a double album
they were both double albums, weren't they?
on Our Radical. It had Reagan Youth and
No, it was like all European bands. I remember there was this. I remember I was listening to it with Timmy and Dave Stork, and there was this Dutch band, and they had the perfect hardcore song, like the perfect melodic punk hardcore song from 1983. And we're listening to it, like everything, right up to like the bass lead in the bridge, and we're like, yeah, this is like the perfect song. And then there was this Hungarian band right afterwards, and it was like recorded on somebody's boombox. It was like, and we were all like, this is fucking awesome. This is the greatest song ever.
I think we're talking about the same thing, but there are
Probably.
American.
Well, wasn't there an Eastern Front comp as well, where it was East Coast bands? It came maybe several years later. I thought there was, but for the sake
Yeah.
of time, Grundy, you want to do your number 4 or your number
Number
2?
two.
My
It's
number
called at
2.
this point.
Okay, my number 2. Bill, I would be surprised if this was in your top 2. Rocket to Russia.
There you go.
It's just like,
Great album.
I was
It
listening
was-
to it today. Side 2 has always been better for me. I never liked Cretan Hop that much.
I did. I love that whole album.
Mhm.
I didn't. It's not on my list
Oh, interesting.
intentionally because I think I'm talking in terms of right now. These 5 that I have are my favorite right now. I mean, it's a weird split for me. Like that would certainly be in top records of all time, but as far as like my top 5 punk albums, it was on my list and it's on my honorable mention list, but it didn't make top 5.
Yeah, it just, to me, it's like there's a handful of songs on there that I can just listen to, and it's fortunate because it's not, the ones that you hear on WPDH or any
Yeah.
other freaking AR album, so
They really hit
it's-
their stride with that album, I think.
Rockaway Beach
Rockaway
is a
Beach.
song. When I hear it start, I immediately am like transported back to like 1984.
Yep.
Going down to the city, riding the E, and it's just like, yeah. Still have never been to Rockaway Beach, but whatever, who cares?
Just
Sheen
go
is
to
a
the
punk rocker,
bathroom
of
before
course.
you go there,
Do You Want to Dance is another great one off of that.
or come back.
And Surfing Bird. Sorry.
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to a little bit of today, and I was like, at the time, I had already been listening to the Dead Kennedys. I kind of fallen off the Ramones train, from like what I heard on the radio before, and like Teenage Lobotomy. It was just like, yeah, it's like they understand.
Right. It's almost like that album should have been there. Like it seemed like it was more I can't put it into words, like emblematic of like them growing up than like who they were as when their first album came out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? Like it's almost like a song like Rockaway Beach is like the Beatles' Strawberry Fields or something. Like it's a thing that's like so clearly tattooed on their psyche that
Yep.
I don't know what I'm trying to say. Not making any sense. But
What about you, Charlie? What's your number 2?
my number 2 has to be Fear the Record.
Mm.
Oh man, that's a good choice.
There's
Because-
so many of us,
Yep.
there's so many of us.
I remember, I mean, I listen to it constantly, but especially whenever I'm in a terrible mood, which is often. But I'm trying to think how to segue. We used to have this fear button. Do you remember that fear button?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd wear it to these hippie parties in college and get all these weird, like nothing else about me like said I was into punk rock, but I just had this like button that was just the logo, it said Fear. And I always liked it. And, I love that album. That's, you know, it's great front to back.
I will say that ended up on my you guys have hit 2 of the albums that are on my honorable mention list
God, they
in
it's
a
so
row.
weird. Didn't even think of them, and I love that album so much. I think that just goes to show like there's so much great music. It's really hard to find 5 albums that
I
represent
could come
everything.
back next week and probably do another 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely do another 5.
Presence is a good album.
Dum 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 dum.
Oh,
All right, Bill, what's your number 2?
All right, my number 2 is, drum roll please, where is it? This one's gonna be a no duh for probably all of you, but Walk Among Us from the Misfits. I had heard, I think I mentioned last week, I'd already known and loved the Ramones and the Sex Pistols, but this was when I joined the Malefactors. This was on the back side of the cassette that the guys handed me. The first side had the band's material on it, and the second side was Walk Among Us, and it was like I just never looked back after that. I'm like, these guys are just, the guy could sing, they could play, they were fast, loud, harsh, they had melody, you know. I mean, I guess that's kind of a hook for me. I'm a Ramones fan, and
Yeah.
talk about the Descendants and stuff like that. You know, they were great songs, and yeah, this was it. I spent tons of time trying to track down their older stuff. I found a copy of Beware. That was great. Had Last Caress on it. That song's a great one. But
Was there a moment
Yeah.
when you were first
A hybrid
listening
moment?
to it where you were like, wow, is this the band I'm joining?
no, they told me,
wow, these guys are great.
we were doing that was on there because they did a cover. Well, we ended up doing a cover of
We're
Where
chickens
Eagles
there.
Dare. We're Chickens Dare. Yeah.
Yeah.
So so that's why they put that on there for me, because they wanted to do that cover.
did you go to the big like the Garden reunion?
No, I stayed away from that. I went
Wasn't
to a
that
couple.
like a part punk rock show, part weightlifting, bodybuilding show?
Yeah. Dave
That dude's out
Lombardo
of
played drums for
control.
them. You know, Dave
Yeah.
Lombardo did those gigs.
I know. Dave
But yeah,
Lombardo
so-
works hard for the money.
Yeah, he's amazing. He really is, I think. Anyway, back to the Misfits. I never saw them with Danzig. I did see them when they did the first album without Danzig, which I thought was a really good album too. American Psycho. I don't know if you guys had heard that or not, but it was a pretty
I'm
good
aware
album.
of it. Yeah.
The guy was a good singer, and he was similar enough to Danzig to be able to pull that material off, and different enough for the newer material to sound different but still good. And then beyond that, I saw him a couple times after that. After what was his name? Michael Graves left the band, and I'm like, yeah, okay, they're done.
I remember Joe James saying it was the best Misfits cover band he ever heard.
Yeah, I believe it.
They should get that guy that took Steve Perry's place in Journey. They could Danzig him up.
I don't know, is Jerry singing for them now? It's like Jerry's singing. Well, when they're not doing the Danzig reunion, but it's like Jerry singing and Des Cadena playing guitar, right? And I know they had
I think
Robo.
Des Cadena plays guitar. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they had Robo in the band again for a little bit playing drums, but I don't know who's with him now, aside for Dave Lombardo doing the reunion stuff. But
It's so weird
anyway,
about stuff like that because I always think of Dez as like, what would have become of him, but he hangs out in our friend Vinny's restaurant.
he's like a local dude, down to earth, big New York Giants fan or something, right?
Yeah, but he must be getting money from something.
Hey, touring.
Yeah, right.
All right. So anyway, Danny, you're number 2.
Number 2 will be Clash London Calling. That album is just so strong. I remember like when I first listened to it, it just was sort of shocking to me that bands that were considered punk rock or punk music could play anything they wanted. Like to me at that point, like I thought it was just all fast and angry, and this was those things, but then so much more. And I think it just kind of blew my mind to the point where I was like, I don't know that I can really wrap my head around this. And like, it just kind of threw me for a bit of a loop in a weird way. And I love that album. I think from top to bottom, it's just a great album.
When were you introduced to that album? Was it before you got into all the more hardcore, heavier stuff, or after that, or?
It was probably, I was probably 19 or 20.
Okay, so you were already in the punk rock scene by then.
Yeah. In fact, it kind of like messed with my head. Like I was in affirmative action at the time. It was right when Roger left. A lot of songwriting fell on Jim and I, and then I heard that album and I was like, there's no, like, I can't fucking write a song. No fucking way. Like this is what I got to try to live up to. Like, I can't fucking do this. And it really kind of fucked with my head for a little bit.
Yeah, but then you went and wrote Secret Agent. So there you
go. A modern classic.
That's right.
Well, not so modern anymore, I guess.
I'm same as the card cheat.
Yeah.
I say pound for pound, Secret Agent is one of the best songs from any of my friends' bands
to come out of the Hudson Valley.
Yes.
And I always loved the way Joe Strummer and Mick Jones played off each other, and the sort of competitiveness, it's like Lennon and McCartney in a way. They have like these two different ways of approaching music, and they kind of need each other because neither one of them was ever really complete without the other.
Yeah.
Right.
What Mick Jones did Big Audio Dynamite, like what the fuck.
Remember walking out of that?
They had one song.
I mean, Joe Strummer
and I went to see it.
Some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
He did some really cool stuff later on. I think it took a while for it to like sort of stick. Like the Walker soundtrack is an amazing chunk of music, and a lot of that's due to him. But like that album for me really kind of helped me realize too that like there's these two voices in this band, and it's not just all one or the other. And I think that was like a real, that's sort of what I liked about it, because it kind of mirrored after a while I realized like it was mirroring my own existence. Jim and I were writing songs, and there was competitiveness, like who's going to have, if we can have 10 songs on the album, I better get 5 of my songs on there. Maybe I can write a 6th and bump one. It's like, shit gets weird sometimes, in bands. And so I think like it just sort of made me realize like you don't have to compete, like it all just works.
Yeah.
So,
That's
album.
interesting. Quick side note, and I don't know how Grundy, how you ever felt, but with Dover Boys anyway, none of us really got caught up in like, I wrote that, you wrote that. We all, for the most part, everything we wrote together.
And then I have everything written down. It's just we all wrote it together.
It was all about the lyrics, I think, with Jim and I. We would write, the band would write the music all together, but the lyrics are always done usually by a person by themselves.
That would have been probably 90%, if not more, Tim doing the lyrics. I couldn't write. I mean, the songs I wrote were terrible.
You wrote
the lyrics
song.
too. Yeah.
And food.
Food. Yeah.
all the things that we had completely done before taking back from Switzerland.
Yeah.
I can't write a song.
It's interesting because after, having so much experience with that and the other bands it's like we're all like, everybody gets credit because we all have something to that we put into this. And then working with some other people and they're like, no, I wrote that song. It's like, did you write the bass part for that song? Because I'm pretty sure I workshopped that fucker with you for hours. No, I wrote that song. It's like, okay.
It's one thing I'm really glad we never got caught up in was who owned what as far as the music went,
Well, in affirmative, we never did either. When it came down to, getting copyrights and all of that stuff, everything on the albums, everything on the demos is always like everything is just all three of us. It was never. It was more like for all I know, it was all in my own head. It could have just been me being competitive. You're young, you're bursting with testosterone, you're angry at the world.
I think as far as we ever got into concerning ourselves with copyright is to mail ourselves a copy of the cassette when we were done with it.
That doesn't work. That doesn't work.
All right. So are we at number one yet? I think
we're at number one.
Do you want to do the
do a lightning round and just say who your honorable mentions were?
Sure, go for it.
Okay. My honorable mentions, I was considering Alice in the Bags, Subhumans, GBH, Sick of It All, Breakdown, Dickies, and Buzzcocks.
Wow, that's a lot.
You were really thinking about this.
It was that or do my job. Don't tell them. Sorry,
can't do that.
Listen to this. Who are your honorables, Charlie?
The Peace War comp. Nervous Breakdown was the Black Flag with Keith Morris. DOA, Flipper, Generic, Gang of Four, Entertainment. Minutemen, Double Nickels on the Dime. Feeders, Ever Feel Like Killing Your Boss.
Cool. I've got 4 of them written down, and you guys have already hit on 3 of them. Rocket to Russia, Fear the Record. Grundy, you just mentioned GBH specifically for me, City Babies Revenge. And
that's good album.
This was a late edition once I realized we could add comps. I really love Thrasher number 3, I think it was, Wild Riders Aboards. I don't know if you guys know anything that's on that. Septic Death is on there.
Septic Death.
Who else? Let me see. I don't have it up, but yeah, that's a great one. I didn't like any of the other Thrasher ones, albums, but that one I thought was great. And Danny.
Some things that came to mind while I was thinking of this: AOD, take your pick, Humongous Fungus, Wacky Hijinks. I still love Elvis.
Yeah.
Riding with Elvis and Bigfoot's UFO. Clash, Sandinista. I think that's a weirdly experimental but sometimes brilliant album. Public Image Limited album.
Really,
we should do Police on My Back. Let's do Police on My Back.
It's a good one. Flipper Generic. And I had Jesus Lizard Down. But I'd take pretty much any of the Jesus Lizard albums.
Go. Yeah, that's
a number one.
Number one.
Or the first one you thought of, however we're doing it.
No, this is, I thought about this pretty hard today because, like I said, I was shirking pretty hard too. Sex Pistols song, but not Anarchy. God Save the Queen. And I was thinking about it. I was like, this is really the first really pointed, angry punk rock song that just like was like, holy fuck, they said that? It's like, yes, they said that. And they got in a hell of a lot of trouble for it, and they were unrepentant. And I was like, that's fucking awesome.
That's your number one?
That's my number one.
Wait,
Nice.
You picked a song, not an album?
It's a single.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
The B-side in a single, Did You Know Wrong? It's actually a really good fucking song too. And unlike Bollocks, the production is really not bad. The production on the B-side is actually better than the production on God Save the Queen.
Did You Know Wrong?
Yeah, Did You Know Wrong?
Because I have, I had the 8-track, and then I have a re-release of Swindle. I don't think I know that one. Huh. Can you send it to me?
Yeah.
All right.
Same here. I don't know if I know that one.
I'll send you the 7-inch on on the YouTubes where he's actually playing the 7-inch.
There you go. Right after you post
Yeah.
this.
Groove to
Yeah.
groove.
What's
Uh,
your number one, Charlie?
my number one shouldn't come as a surprise to you, Dan, but it's Plastic Surgery Disasters.
Waiting for Dead
Uh,
Kennedys.
Yep. And I think it's just they had two good albums, or album and EP, and then I just feel like they just hit their stride with this album, and took a look at American life and American politics, and took out their filleting knife and just laid it open. And in particular, like that song, like Riot or Bleed for Me are just, I had never heard anybody like just lay it out like that. And it's just all those lines just play in my head at like cocktail parties and stuff. Somebody will be talking about something and I'll be like, yeah. Sure. Right. Police, Peace Corps builds up the labor camps. Yep, sure. Right. So that's my number one. Bill?
My number one is not the first album I heard from this band, but it really is kind of the only one you need. What can I say?
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
First album I heard from them was, no, actually that's not true. I guess that was the first album I bought from them. I had already heard the one just before that, Rock for Light, but then I got a hold of this cassette, and it just, the speed, the delivery, the everything just about this was like, oh my fucking God, these guys are like the greatest things ever. And I got to see him at Bard College. If you watch any of they had some fairly recent documentaries, and the bass player talks about a show that they did where HR, they thought he was kind of cutting up and just like mailing in the performances. He had done you talking about him doing a show like sitting in a desk, like a school classroom desk, just sitting there kind of just doing this and singing the whole time and like bouncing around in the chair, but like not even standing up. It turns out he had
that was the Bard show.
It was the Bard College show that we were at. He had like his appendix or something was rupturing, or like he had like a serious medical thing happening. And yeah, that was the only time I got to see them, and it was an amazing show. People just jumping off the rafters, and everybody that was there. I mean, there were a ton of skinheads there and metalheads and punk kids, and just everybody seemed to get along, and it was an amazing time. That was on the Eye Against Eye tour. But back to this album, just the recording isn't the greatest, but they really captured something in the way that it was recorded, and the songs and the delivery and the whole deal. Just
that's
amazing.
A cassette only, right? And then Rock for Light is just Rick Ocasek just basically remastered.
No, it's
re-recorded
completely
a lot
different.
of the same songs.
Some of the same songs.
Sailing on, not all the same. Not all the same songs. You're right. Like Regulator and
yeah. There's a few songs that were crossed over, but
yeah, I think,
and that's a great album too.
Yeah.
Even the one that
I have to agree. It's not it's cleaned up. The sound is cleaned up.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost
which I was totally cool with and fine with.
Yeah,
that album for what it is, but
how dirty it sounds. Yeah.
This package and what they had to offer at that time was just, it was amazing. So if you haven't seen any of the documentaries, there's a great one on HR and his current state. Well, it's a few years old by now, but talking about his story and how he's kind of his career and how he's changed over time from what he was when he first joined the Bad Brains to where he is now. It's night and day.
Didn't he just play Pat's Pizza Place?
Yeah, he did.
HR?
In fact,
Yeah,
yeah, no, this is probably like 5 years ago.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, he did.
right around the
It
time
was
that the Reagans did. Yeah.
Huh. In Poughkeepsie?
Carla and I were when Carla and I were doing the podcast. His manager got in touch with us, and I think he was looking for a gig, and I connected him with Pat's Pizza Place. And then and they booked a show there, and I was like, "Hey, can HR come on the podcast?" And the guy was like,
No.
"Yeah, we can see what he just kind of gave me the runaround." And I was never able to pull it together, but that would have been an amazing interview. But it seemed like there was almost like a bubble around him, like they were probably trying to sort of protect him. I heard the show was absolutely horrific at the pizza place. I didn't go. A couple of people went, and they said it was just an absolute fucking disaster. Like, he was just in really bad shape, and it was just a mess, like a complete mess. So it's kind of sad.
Danny?
My number one would be, well, I can't believe Bill didn't put it on his list, GBH City Babies Revenge.
On my honorable mention.
That's like such a, Roger was the one that introduced me to that album. And you could, after hearing it, you could totally hear where Roger comes from, because it's,
Yep.
Oh, my internet connection's unstable. Like, and I'll just, like, GBH is just like, I just love the sense of melody that they have in that band. Like, it's still aggressive and it's still wild, but it all is not just like craziness in the music. Like, it all just, like, I don't know if it's, and the
They were
great thing
good
about them
songs,
is
too.
like, I don't know if they're a punk band. Are they a metal band? Like, I don't, like, they're sort of not really any one thing, and they're just great.
Mm.
And I last time I told you about my adventures at the GBH show when Agnostic Front opened up, but the coolest thing about them was it was a matinee, and there was some sort of noise ordinance in Trenton, believe it or not. And I can remember in the middle of GBH's set, just like the doors to the city gardens kind of like busting open and daylight flooding in, and then like the PA getting cut, and they never stopped playing. Like, they never stopped for a minute. They just turned their amps up louder and just played as if they were just in a small club. And they like figured out some quickie fix with the microphone. I forget, maybe most people left, but I just stayed. They ended up like finishing their set to just like a handful of people. And it was fucking cool as hell, man. But they like never missed a beat. Like, it's at least the way I remember it. Like, doors popped open, people ran everywhere. I just kind of stood there and
That's so
watched.
weird.
The sound went off. They kept playing, so I stayed. Nobody kicked me out. Maybe it was like an underage thing or something. I don't know, but because I wasn't underage at the time. Oh no, maybe I was. I don't even know. No, I was 19. I think I was allowed to be there. I think it was like a 16 and 18 and up thing or something.
City Gardens, I
don't
think,
know.
usually
Didn't
was
pay-
always
Yeah.
all ages. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was some
I
sort of.
think I
weird
heard
noise.
that for the first time in Mario's van.
Oh yeah.
You did a lot of first time things in Mario's van, from what I hear.
Like what? Like being Mario's van? I was in Mario's van once for the first time.
Watching your life pass before your eyes. There's being thrown off the couch in the back while he goes around.
No,
the
I was in
turn.
the front seat and I nearly like fell into that like there was that step to get out, in the front seat, and my center of gravity was all thrown off because my leg was broken and I was like favoring it. And he took this turn really fast and it was like
I think we should do a whole show dedicated to Mario's van.
Mario's
Oh
van.
God.
I've even got a Mario's van story. When he almost drove over me.
I have so many because I pretty much lived in those vans for a couple of years.
Good stuff. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's it. We're good. We went pretty long tonight.
This
like
was a
almost
long
an hour
one,
and a half.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about music.
Yep.
Yes.
I'll
All right.
cut the front off and take all the funny spots and just stick them in front of various shit.
Okay,
Good
well,
Hey, everybody say goodnight to the
Good
nice
night.
people who,
good.
thanks, Mom. Let's listen
Bye.
to us again next week.